Hello, everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, I have Lieutenant Commander Gregg Miller on the show, and he is going to be talking to us about his experience being an operating room nurse in the Navy. So, welcome, Greg.
Hi, good day, Stella. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So, the first question I have is what was your nursing experience before commissioning as an officer in the Navy?
Well, pretty much zero. I was a enlisted medic in the Army first. I went from active duty to the National Guard as I figured out what I wanted to do in life. That really does translate to like emergency medical technician on the civilian side. So running ambulances, doing frontline medicine, the role one kind of stuff was what I did before I became a nurse, and that's what I did.
Nice. How did you hear about the Navy and what made you want to join, especially after being enlisted in the Army?
Well, I was enlisted for so long that I figured it'd be a waste to not go back in and finish off a good retirement. So I wasn't going to be enlisted the whole time. So I ran across a few commissioning programs through the Army, through the Navy, through the Air Force, and the Navy one got me, and I'm glad I picked it. I looked at MESIP, but I was already out of the military. I was in the National Guard at the time, and I looked at just getting my degree, being a civilian, and then transitioning back to active duty. But then I found a scholarship program on the Navy webpage and the Nurse Corps homepage, and I went from there.
Okay, awesome. And then what program did you use to join the Navy? Was it the NCP?
It was the Navy Nurse Candidate program.
Okay. And then can you tell me about what that experience was like? Like, was it hard to get your package together? Did you need letters of recommendation? And about how long was the process?
The process wasn't too difficult. It has a full instruction book. The recruiter I worked with at the time down at the Navy Officer Recruiting in Nashville was very helpful. He set me up to get my package put together. I did have to get some letters of recommendation from Navy officers. They were easy to meet through my recruiter. And it took a whole process took about 4 months to put together, about 3 months to find out if it got accepted or not. And we went through an interview process. Had to write a bunch of statements, got a lot of cool letters from folks, and it was pretty smooth. I didn't have any hiccups in the process at all.
What was your first duty station?
My first duty station was Portsmouth, Virginia.
And then did you pick that duty station?
I did because it was close to family.
Okay. And then can you describe your experience there and how your transition was from, I know you had enlisted experience, but your transition from that civilian life back into the military?
Big change, but it was a good change. It was getting back into the swing of things and getting back to work. I graduated in May, and I ended up going to Officer Development School in August. So I went there from August to September, and it was a month. It was a good time, good training. They teach you how to be a Navy officer. And I went to Portsmouth in late September, and you just hit the ground running. You do the nurse orientation, you make sure all your paperwork's good, and then they send you through all the floors in Portsmouth, and you get a taste of every kind of specialty that's ahead of you. So went to the operating room, ER, mental health, the med surgical wards, and from there the coordinator for the new nurses says, "All right, you probably be a good fit here," and ended up going to the ER for the first couple of years.
Nice. Yeah. And from there, when did you learn about or think about becoming an operating room nurse?
Yeah, as a nurse, that my whole past history has been a lot of excitement, and at first I was pretty hesitant to even consider perioperative nursing. But as I met more perioperative nurses, Lieutenant Commander Hart, one of them, and Lieutenant Commander Jamie Parker, I figured, hey, this is actually a pretty good gig, and it's a lot more high speed, higher pace, high tempo than I expected it to be. When you look at TV, you see somebody dressed up in scrubs, and they're standing, and they're like, "Yes, doctor, let me pass you this." It's not like that at all. So what I did was I shadowed with a few of my friends that were operating room nurses, and I said, "Wow, this is pretty exciting work. I feel like I'm really a part of a patient care team." So it was an easy transition from the 1,000-mile-an-hour emergency room to something a bit more meticulous, and but still eventful, and that's what got me into perioperative nursing.
Nice. And also just for the viewers and anyone watching, OR nursing, periop nursing, you do get a nice bonus, right? Whereas unfortunately the ER nurses don't, correct?
Currently, the Navy doesn't offer a bonus for emergency room nurses. Currently, the Navy does offer a bonus for perioperative nurses and some other subspecialties. The amount that you can get for your bonus, fluctuates based on personnel, staffing, manning. Right now, it's sitting pretty lucrative, and I won't say that's what drove me to become a perioperative nurse, but it was certainly a really, really helpful push in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that you should be compensated for your work, right?
Sure. And, really what it does, it brings you comparable to what your civilian equivalents can make, which is appreciative because a lot of people that just start off in the Navy, I've been in for years and years, and I have no reason to get out of the Navy. But when you run across people that are really on the cusp, do I stay in? Do I get out? When the Navy gives you that little bonus to make you good with your civilian counterparts, then that's a good reason to stay.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Can you talk about that transition from being an ER nurse to being a periop nurse? Like, how did you apply for the program? What kind of things did you need in order to be eligible for the program, and any letters of recommendation?
It was a pretty simple process. Again, another packet. It was easier. It was far easier than becoming a nurse in the Navy. But a few letters of recommendation. You have to have so many hours of shadowing in the operating room to make sure it's something you actually want. That all has to be documented. I believe they accept packages twice a year. I submitted mine in March, and by May, I found out that I was accepted into it. For this subspecialty, you don't just walk into it. You have to go to a course first. So once they accept your package, then they decide where your first duty station is going to be. And at that duty station, before you get there, you go to either San Diego or Portsmouth for their perioperative school. So I went to San Diego for the perioperative school. That lasted 3 months. And then my duty station was also San Diego.
Okay. And then did you feel well prepared after that? And then you learn, you go to your school, and then it's pretty much on the job, right?
It's all on the job training. We did a few weeks of class work and watching the PowerPoints, all the informative stuff. But we really just dove into the operating rooms, followed around a bunch of operating room nurses, and they let us get our hands dirty. Perioperative nursing, just like most nursing, to be honest, isn't really classroom based. It's all getting in there and taking care of the patients that need it. So there was not too much schoolwork. I was hesitant to get back into a training program because nursing school was long. I said I never want to do school again, but it was more journeyman kind of stuff, more actually getting into it.
Yeah. And for the viewers out there, I know Gregg. I worked with him. We were deployed together, so I know how much he loves being a periop nurse. So that's why I was like, I need to interview him for this. So
Love being a perioperative nurse. Every day I go to work, I'm so happy, except for the commute to get there. Start off my day with people that need help. And by the end of the day, I've got 2, 3, 4, 5 people out the door with the surgery that they've been expecting for months and months and months. And I did it correctly, safely, and efficiently. And it's just a really great job.
all right, let's transition. So you do have a family, you're married, you have 2 children. How have you managed having a family and being in the Navy? And what would you say your biggest challenges have been with that?
Well, it is the military, and big part of the military is deploying. I do have a wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs, and the biggest challenge is those deployments. Thankfully, we started out with some shorter ones, a few weeks here, a few weeks there. Then I did 4 or 5 months out on the USNS Mercy, and then I went for a much longer year in Djibouti. It is the biggest hurdle, but it's part of the game. If you join the military, you should expect to deploy. Um, and just that missing my family, I would say, would be the only hard part about it, or them missing me as well. But as for difficulty, when I look at a civilian equivalent perioperative nurse, this job is a pretty good job. It's challenging, but it does prepare you for deployments, and you do get to travel free on the government's dime to places you may or may not pick. So just getting used to those long periods without family is okay. But like in Djibouti, you were there with me. I talked to my family every single day.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it depends where you get deployed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the tempo, or if it's a wartime situation or humanitarian type of situation, that's a good point. You can talk to your family in some areas.
Well, yeah, I had internet in my living quarters in Djibouti. Of course, when you're out on the ship and you don't really have cabled internet because you're on a ship, it might be a little bit more difficult. But I still talk to my family every couple of days when I was out on a ship.
What are your most proud moments from being in the Navy, and are there any experiences that stand out?
One of the best things I've done in the Navy is going out on the USNS Mercy for Pacific Partnership. That was a time for the entire crew to really show our mental fortitude and our job proficiencies to people that really, really needed it. We traveled to a multitude of countries throughout the Pacific Ocean, and we treated people that would not have gotten that treatment unless we were there. They were very grateful, and something that seems so mundane to someone here in America is life or death for people across the world. And being able to bring such a excellent level of care to people that have no other choice, they're just waiting for us to come. That I'm very proud of that we helped the people that needed it the most.
And then what is one thing you wish you would have known before joining the Navy?
Okay, you might holler at me for this one, but when you become a nurse in the Navy, you don't exactly get to pick where you go right away. A lot of the times it's up to the needs of the Navy. I was very, very lucky and mildly uncooperative, but I was able to get to the ER from my first duty station. That doesn't always happen for people. The Navy might be really low on med-surg nurse, labor and delivery. You might go to a specialty or service that you weren't really expecting to, but lateral transfer between specialties isn't too difficult if you put in the work for it. Obviously, you can't walk into someone's department and say, "Hey, I want to come work for you." You gotta show that you want to be a part of it. Like when you do perioperative nursing, you have to get those hours in. You have to talk to perioperative leadership, and you have to get a package accepted. So, as long as you're proactive, after that first little bit in your Navy career, you can really guide your own path. It's not too difficult.
Yeah, I always say that, like, to people who message me or write to me on YouTube. They're always asking, like, can I do this right away? And I'm like, it is needs of the Navy. It is the military. But like you said, you can laterally transfer, but you have to show, like, okay, you really want to. You can do on the job training, unfortunately, on your off days, but you just have to show that you want it and you can do it. So I'm glad you brought that up.
It's worth the time because I put in the effort to become a perioperative nurse, and my life has been excellent ever since being a perioperative nurse. It's not difficult. People just need to put in that work.
Right. All right. So last question. Do you have any words of wisdom for those who may be thinking about joining the Navy as a nurse?
Don't plan too much. Because plans get derailed. And, that's also in the civilian world too. Something's going to happen tomorrow. And if you have these plans that you're reliant on to happen no matter what, you might get a little disappointed. Here and there, deployments do pop up. Here and there, staffing levels may mean you need to work a job you don't want to. Flexibility is important. There's a million ways to get to your final destination. Be willing to take a few detours if you need to.
I think that's great advice. Thank you, Gregg, so much for doing this and taking the time to tell us about your Navy Nurse Corps experience.
course.
And thank you to everyone watching, all the viewers. Thank you for supporting my channel. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you. And keep chasing your dreams. I'll see you in the next video.